There's something big happening in Baltimore today. Just when everything looked messy, a piece of news dropped that completely flipped the mood around the team. You know that kind of day where everything feels off and suddenly one thing happens that changes the whole picture? That's exactly what this feels like. And the wild part is that this shift opens a massive door for what could happen from here on out. But there's one detail in this story, something most people completely miss, that makes this moment for the Ravens so special. It changes the standings. It changes the weight of the next game. And it even changes the confidence level for the rest of the season. Once you hear it, you'll understand why Baltimore fans suddenly have every reason in the world to feel fired up right now. The game started looking like everything was finally clicking again. Baltimore moved the ball well. The defense looked sharp, and there was a sense that they were ready to use the night to get their rhythm back. But that feeling didn't last. As soon as Joe Burrow looked like his old self again, every small opening turned into a big play, and every mistake from the Ravens became points on the other side. It felt like they walked in with the right plan, but forgot to hold it together when it mattered. As the game went on, the errors started piling up like tiny cracks spreading across a window. A bad penalty. A turnover that sucked the momentum out of the room. A promising drive suddenly falling apart for no reason. And when the offense needed to breathe, the run game just vanished like someone erased it from the script. Derrick Henry fought for every yard, but with the O-line struggling and the play calling losing its rhythm, it was nearly impossible for him to turn strength into production. The frustrating part is that this wasn't some impossible matchup. Baltimore wasn't overwhelmed from start to finish. The win was right there within reach, asking for nothing more than basic execution and fewer slip-ups. And that's exactly why it stings more. Because everyone knows the opportunity was right in their hands, and it slipped away due to mistakes the team has seen too many times this season. And while the game fell apart, one question hung in the air. How much would this hurt the division race? A loss like this could have made everything even heavier in the standings. But that's where Pittsburgh comes into the picture, because something happened in their game that unexpectedly kept Baltimore in a much better spot than anyone expected after such a frustrating night. While Baltimore was trying to shake off the disappointment, something interesting was happening on another screen. Pittsburgh couldn't keep up with Buffalo, and that 26-7 loss changed the entire meaning of the night. What felt like a crushing setback for the Ravens suddenly shifted once the standings updated. The blow didn't hit as hard, not because Baltimore played well, but because their biggest rival stumbled even harder. Situations like this feel strange. You know your team messed up, but you still wake up in a better spot than you deserved. That's exactly what happened. The Steelers' loss pushed the Ravens back on top of the AFC North, almost like someone grabbed Baltimore's hand right before they fell further. It doesn't erase the mistakes, but it stops the damage from becoming something worse. And Pittsburgh's loss doesn't exist in a vacuum. It tells you a lot about where they are right now, what problems are starting to show, and how all of that impacts what Baltimore is about to face. It's the kind of detail that, when added to everything else that happened this week, reshapes expectations and places new pieces on the board. The division lead is real, but only matters if Baltimore can take advantage of it. And this is where the next step gets even bigger, because the way Pittsburgh lost also revealed a lot about the state of their roster. It opened up opportunities Baltimore needs to understand before stepping into a showdown that suddenly feels like something a lot bigger than a regular season game. Aaron Rodgers coming back was supposed to give the Steelers a spark, but only created more questions. He looked rusty, didn't connect on much, and the offense never found any rhythm against Buffalo. The strip sack that knocked him out only made everything look shakier. And this matters not just because of that game, but because of what it means for the matchup that's coming next. When a quarterback returns from an injury and immediately gets banged up again, the team walks into a fog of uncertainty. That's exactly where Pittsburgh is now. They don't know if they can trust the protection. They don't know which version of their offense will show up, and they don't know if they can sustain long drives. Every one of these question marks becomes a point Baltimore can attack if they're sharp enough. It also changes the emotional vibe of the matchup. Instead of facing a confident rival, Baltimore gets a team scrambling to find its identity at the worst possible moment. But teams in that position often play with the desperation of someone who knows they're running out of time. And that's why the Ravens need to prepare carefully. not falling into the trap of assuming the game is won before it starts. And right in the middle of all this uncertainty comes another crucial piece: the numbers behind the AFC North race. They explain why every detail matters and why the next step feels like a turning point even before December is over.
All right, we're already past the halfway point of this video, but before we continue, I noticed you haven't left a like yet. It's really important because it helps YouTube keep showing you my content so I can keep bringing you the best news about the Baltimore Ravens. So go ahead and hit that like button. It's free and it really helps. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
ESPN's projections give Baltimore a 58% chance to win the division, and at first glance, that sounds comfortable. But if you actually look at it, the picture is anything but calm. Pittsburgh sits right behind at 35%, which means the gap is way smaller than it looks when you're just staring at percentages. It's the kind of difference that can disappear in just one bad week, especially with a head-to-head matchup coming up. And the number that jumps out is Cincinnati's, just 7%. It matches what we've been seeing on the field. They're falling behind, but also makes something else clear. The real fight is between the Ravens and Steelers now. And when a race turns into a duel like this, every mistake becomes huge. Baltimore can't afford another week where the offense feels disconnected or where penalties and turnovers decide the tempo. These projections act like a quiet reminder that the Ravens have control, but the control is fragile. It's like holding something valuable that's heavier than it looks. You know you're in front. You know you're steering the moment, but you also know that one slip can flip everything upside down. That's why the focus has to be absolute, especially with the other contenders so close and so desperate for a shift. And that snapshot of the division makes it even clearer why this next game feels like an early playoff preview. It's not just another chapter in the season. It's a chance to turn numbers into real confidence on the field. Now, the path forward is all about fixing the details that slipped. Baltimore needs to get back to the basics with the same conviction they had during their best weeks. Protect the ball, cut out the drive-killing penalties, and bring the run game back as a centerpiece. Derrick Henry still has all the power you expect, but he can only show it when he gets help from the line and from a play-calling approach that leans into his strengths. On defense, the adjustment is more mental than structural. It's about discipline, closing those openings that were too easy last week and turning every tackle into a reminder for the opponent that nothing will come easy. When an offense is already under pressure, even one solid hit can tilt the tone of a drive. That mindset could be the key to forcing Pittsburgh into rush decisions that collapse possessions before they start. Even though it's only Week 14, the atmosphere around this game doesn't feel like the regular season at all. This is a kind of matchup that shifts narratives, resets hierarchies, and marks the moment where a team shows whether it's built for something bigger. Baltimore has a chance to turn a tough week into a turning point, in emotion and in momentum. And if this game really has that playoff vibe already in the air, the result could be the moment the season finally reveals who's ready to finish strong and who's just trying to keep up. In the end, this week made one thing clear. Nothing is settled in the AFC North, and Baltimore still has way more control over their destiny than it seemed after losing to the Bengals. Pittsburgh's stumble pushed the Ravens back into first place. The projections now tilt in their favor, and the next game carries the weight to reshape their entire season. If the offense tightens up, the run game finds its rhythm again, and the defense gets back to being consistent. The Ravens step into exactly the kind of moment that separates teams that survive from teams built to contend. Now I want your take. After everything that changed this week, do you think the Baltimore Ravens will take advantage of this chance and lock down the division? It feels like the turning point they've been waiting for, and if Baltimore responds the right way, this might be the chapter that decides what's coming next. Let's see how they show up.
And if you, just like me, are passionate about the world of football and want to learn more about the Ravens' legacy, don't leave this video without sharing it with that friend who is also a Baltimore Ravens fan and will love this content. See those video suggestions on your screen? The first one was handpicked just for you, and the other is a recommendation from YouTube itself.